Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and here we're looking at the Hyundai Inster. And I thought to give you just a quick little pan around of the vehicle right now before we actually go on a drive. Now it actually does look pretty different if you look at it in terms of its silhouette. It's kind of thin at the front, high at the top, and then short at the bottom. You've also got these 17-inch alloys, if I'm not mistaken, on this particular vehicle. As for the paint finish, well, no complaints whatsoever, but you have got these kind of plastic wheel arches, small little side skirts that go around, and then this roof rack as well, the roof rails. And then you've got these lights, which are kind of classic Hyundai at the moment in terms of how the look of it. It kind of gives me that kind of 8-bit design. And then you've also got these circular tail lights as well, so it makes it look a little bit funkier at the rear, and at the front I think again it's same sort of profile with the headlights. Now let's actually jump in. I'll put the camera on my head, but what we'll do is start up from the back, and yes, the door handle at the back is a little bit different, but of course it's currently locked, so let's just unlock that. We'll start off at the back. So despite it being a relatively small vehicle and a compact one, and by the way, yes, it's a 4-seater, so you haven't got a middle seat. No surprise again, given its overall size. But despite it being relatively compact, you will actually be surprised to know that as someone who's just under 6 foot, I have got loads of headroom, which is really surprising. And in terms of legroom, it's actually not too bad either. Have you checked that out? Again, just under 6 foot. Decent amount of legroom as well, so it's actually quite surprising. And yes, you've got no nonsensical transmission tunnel, which is certainly appreciated. And as for the overall door quality and trim, well, of course it does feel a little bit cheaper in comparison to more expensive alternatives. It's kind of got this kind of blocky design, but you've got kind of a soft type of material over here, and then you've got the small door pockets and then the speaker as well. So now let's just go into the front seat. We pop out over here and jump in over here. Now as for the driver right now, it does actually feel pretty nice in terms of how you're actually sat within. I've got no real complaints in terms of leg room, and yet again headroom, no problems whatsoever. Of course the seat is adjustable. As for what you got at the front, you've got a 12-volt socket with a USB Type-C Type A port. You've got a small little storage area. You have got the glove box, which is actually pretty sizable. Yet again, considering the size of the vehicle, it's actually quite nice. You then also got a small little storage area over here. You have got a 10.25-inch display, if I'm not mistaken, over here. And as for the instrument cluster, it is customizable, as you might come to expect with the Hyundai Motor Group. And it's nice to see that you've got physical buttons over here and physical dials, making it far more easy to find the right settings that you want. And yes, you have got some controls over here, which are for the dedicated climate controls. And yes, you can see over here, you've got a few different adjustments, and no, they're not touchscreen at the top, but over here, they're physical buttons. I absolutely love physical buttons and dials. I absolutely love that. And yes, it's very easy to disable. You then also have a wireless charging bay over here with a non-slip material, and then you've got a small little area to place some snacks if you so wish. In this respect, there are some Orion Choco Pies. And then you've also got a 3-pin socket as well for vehicle to load charging capabilities. In terms of the steering wheel itself, you've got the regenerative braking feel. Yes, you've also got iPedal mode, so you'll get a little notification there. So you've got iPedal mode, which is certainly appreciated. So in terms of regen braking, you'll be able to see it's being adjusted via the instrument cluster there. So it's good to see that you've got that degree of customization. You have got physical buttons and small little dials as well, not only to access certain settings on the instrument cluster, but also for you to, for example, disable some of the driver assistance systems. So in terms of the lane keeping aid, you can hold it down and hold it off again, and you'll be able to see over here it goes yellow when it is actually disabled. So good little thinking by the manufacturer. And then you've also got drive mode. No, it's not rotary, it's just a single button press, and it will just simply go between eco, normal, sport and snow. So with that in mind, and with just a brief first little impression, and yes, you've got a small little armrest over here and 2 cup holders. I'm going to get onto a drive, so let's just catch you on the next scene. Now, just before we do that, I did forget something, and that is, of course, its boot, because it is actually pretty compact. Now, you have got a hatchback design, and therefore makes it pretty accessible. And then you've got this interesting boot load cover, which kind of clips in to the rear headrest. And we're just going to drop the rear seat. And yes, it does actually go all the way down and gives you that sort of flat design. And you can see over here, this thing tries to kind of give you a flat feel. So if I just go around the back and drop it here, you can see what the manufacturer's done in order to make it a little bit easier in terms of loading, because there is a gap between there. So it's really small things like this, which I love the fact that Hyundai actually do. And yes, they've actually thought about it. So you've kind of got a flat floor, but at the same time not. Now, in terms of practicality, you haven't got that much space if you were to leave the rear seats in place, so you can have maybe small-sized carry-on luggage, but you do have a very large underfloor compartment. So therefore, if you were to remove the underfloor compartment and not take your charging cables, or for example, chuck your charging cables at the front seats or within the footwell, then what you'll find is you can actually fit a larger luggage over here, like one that you'd put in a hold luggage. So making it actually still pretty practical. Despite its size, I do think the manufacturers really thought it through in terms of practicality. So without further ado, let's now get on the road. And so now we're sat within the Hyundai Inster. And I can say upon my first driving impressions, I'm actually pleasantly surprised as to how the vehicle feels. It's pretty comfortable to drive, and the suspension system feels pretty well tuned. It's soaking up some of those anomalies and odd speed bumps every now and then, and it doesn't feel too wobbly either. Sure, it's got a little bit of body lean if you're going to really chuck it around winding country routes, but I feel that for the vast majority of consumers, it does actually feel pretty nice. It also has a decent sort of connection with the front axle. Again, it's not the best in its class, and it does feel a little bit disjointed, but again, for most consumers, I think you'll be left pretty impressed as to how easy this vehicle is to drive. It has a very light steering wheel, and that's certainly appreciated. I also love the fact that the amount of frontal vision that I've got, even though I'm not too fond of the somewhat oversized rear view mirror, which kind of blocks a little bit of my frontal vision. But other than that, very easy to peer over the bonnet, very easy to check for my blind spot because of those really wide opening windows, and pretty good at the back as well. As for the seats themselves, well, they feel pretty comfortable, pretty snug, and quite comfortable in terms of how accommodating they are. And you've got a degree of adjustments, of course. And then in terms of the actual infotainment that you've got, well, in front of you, you've got a small little display for your driver's display. Well, I say small, it's actually relatively large given the size of the vehicle. And then you've got the infotainment system, which does feel a little bit of an arm's reach for me, but still, it's there, and you've got a degree of control, and it's nice to see you've got those dedicated climate controls, as I did mention before. Now, aside from that, what you should know is that in terms of the stats of the vehicle, they'll be on your screen right now. I think this vehicle has got a 49 kilowatt hour battery pack, and therefore has got a decent electric range. Again, considering the size and also class of the vehicle, it's not going to compete with far more expensive alternatives. And in terms of the performance figures, well, they're nothing to overly shout about, but right now, as I'm just driving at 40 miles an hour, I put my foot down, well, there's that instant amount of acceleration, and it takes me up to roughly 50-55 miles an hour in an instant. And of course, it is an electric vehicle after all, so therefore you would come somewhat to expect that. So truly, in terms of my first driving impressions, I'm actually pleasantly surprised at what Hyundai have actually been able to achieve within the Inster, and I'll be really curious to see how it does in terms of its true electric range, in terms of a tested electric range, and in terms of how it performs on a longer basis. Now, if you do want to see this vehicle in for review, definitely do let me know down in the comment section below, because I'm actually quite excited. I do think it's a fantastic vehicle, and it'll actually be great to actually test it on a longer basis. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing, and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.